SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
State Treasurer David McRae has put hundreds of millions back into the hands of Mississippi citizens, expanding the state's affordable college and career savings program and also returning record amounts of unclaimed money. Check out how Treasurer David McRae's office can help you, your business, or your organization. Treasury.ms.gov.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
On your radio, on our app, or on your smart speaker, we're always free. SuperTalk Mississippi, your home for Mornings with Richard Cross.
Monday morning, August 24th. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Welcome you to the conversation. Mornings is presented by Community Bank. Ever notice how some places still know your name? At Community Bank, that's how banking works. We're a bank that knows community because we live here. And when you walk in, you're more than an account number. No matter your banking needs, at Community Bank, you'll talk to real people who care about your goals. Community Bank, built on relationships. Stop by your neighborhood location or learn more at communitybank.net. The 7 o'clock hour of Mornings is brought to you every day by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. And if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Back end of May, beginning of June, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann joined me, and we talked about a lot of different things, but the redistricting conversation was front and center. And one of the things that both the Senate and the House have done is put together a committee, a joint legislative redistricting committee. They had their first public forum last week at Itawamba Community College. And it's a listening session and kind of an explanatory session. I think one of the members of the committee said, hey, we're not here to debate. We're here to listen and to try to answer questions. All of this is a result of the Supreme Court decision in Calais versus Louisiana, in which the Supreme Court ultimately said that voting districts cannot be drawn solely on the basis of race. One of the things that we know about the voting districts as they exist today, not just in Mississippi, but in many places all across the country, is that they had previously been drawn specifically on race. BVAP is a term, Black Voting Age Population. And courts across the country handed down decisions that said you've got to redraw districts to create majority-minority districts, which in and of itself is saying you have to draw districts based on race. And so Mississippi began this process shortly after the legislative session ended, putting together this committee. There were some people who raised their eyebrows about the composition of the committee on the Senate side, in that Senate Democrat leader Derek Simmons was placed on the Select Committee on Redistricting. I asked the Lieutenant Governor specifically about that placement when we visited back in early June.
I'd like to start here, and this may sound blunt the way that I asked this. You put together a Senate Select Committee to study the redistricting issue. The House has done that as well. You put a Democrat on that committee, Derek Simmons. Why? I think there are a lot of people that are not only curious but concerned as to why you would appoint him to that committee.
On here we go. First of all, First of all, Richard, I want to win. I intend to win. So take a little bit of a look at this. Every member of those committees on the Joint Legislative Committee from last time, all of them are. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so they're going to be the ones that do the redistricting. So there's been no change in that. They were all appointed again. There are 2 Democrats on there. 2. On the House, there are 5 Democrats on their committee. I assume he wants to win too. When we go to redistrict Mississippi, we're going to end up probably getting sued. And the way to win being sued is we're going to follow the Gingles case. We have thrown out Kalis, thank goodness, that's gone. And for us, we're going to go back to where we have political performance, geographical compactness, communities of interest, county lines, city lines, all the things that it takes for us to win. When y'all hired me as Secretary of State, we got voter ID. We're the only state that didn't get sued. There's a way to do this. And the way to do this is to follow the constitutional law and at least have the visible view that we are inclusive in Mississippi. Otherwise, the first pleadings will be nobody had anything to do. There was no Democrats. For example, we have now removed from all of our calculations that we keep at the state anything about black voting age population, BVAP. Everything that I'm looking at right now, and my committee is looking at, is Democrat and Republican, which is allowed under the new law. And specifically under the Gingles case, we can have it where we have the process where it can be partisan.
Which is an interesting piece of this with regard to redistricting. You cannot draw district lines based on race. You can draw them based on partisanship.
Well, you can draw them on the matters which I told you, your political connections, your city, your counties, your economics, your geographic. You can draw them on that. And if that ends up being excessively political, that's acceptable under the new case. So The one thing we don't want to do is draw it on race. And so where you hear these guys out here saying, oh, we need to go draw it right now, we need to get rid of X congressman or something like that. No. All that's going to do is get us sued again. And I want to be real clear about this. I'm sick of the federal government drafting how I draft my legislature, my Supreme Court, and my congressional districts. This is the last time they're going to do that. We're going to do it right, and we're going to win again. Now, to do that, I have got to be very specific here. And you'll hear these people saying, oh, we can do it over the internet. We should do it right now. Let me ask you another question. I'm glad you brought this up. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you heard someone say that you would know that it's famous? I appreciate your attention to this matter in Mississippi. The president has not asked this. Now, I'm in touch with the White House as recently as yesterday. And so is all the other people down here. I'm sure the legislature, the House is, the governor is, surely. But nowhere in there have you seen the president of the United States. He's got his own Truth Social saying Mississippi needs to redistrict. Now, he said that other places, but he hasn't said that here. So think about it a little bit. We're following what the White House has asked us to do as part of this. And the other thing is, we're sick of the federal government dictating Mississippi's politics about our redistricting. And we're going to win. And we're going to follow this case all the way out. And we're going to redistrict ourselves, and it's going to stick. And we're going to win the case.
That was Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann back in June when I asked him, and it was a very straightforward question to start. You put a Democrat on this redistricting select committee. Why is Derek Simmons on this? Senate Democratic leader. And his response was because we want to win. And then he went on to explain that in great detail, saying that, look, when we draw new districts, we're going to be sued. And we don't want to have a court say, well, you didn't include any Democrats in this process. I suppose a reasonable explanation. But he was adamant that because Derek Simmons was on the previous committee that drew the districts that exist right now, that he should be on the committee as well. Well, we find out that the lieutenant governor has removed Derek Simmons from a select committee on redistricting that is tasked with advising the full chamber on redrawing electoral maps after the Supreme Court decision, the Calais decision. Now, it is worth noting, and I suppose it's important to this conversation, especially based on the explanation that the lieutenant governor gave, that he replaced Simmons with another Democrat. Albert Butler, senator from Port Gibson, took that spot. Why, though, was Derek Simmons removed from the committee? We'll get to that coming up next. Get to your comments on the C Spire text line as well. 601-879-4395. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass.
You come first for news. Fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thank you for joining us and for being part of the conversation. If you would like to join in, you can do so on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. The one plan from C Spire is here: fiber, home, internet, and wireless. Only $99 a month for new and current C Spire customers. One plan, one price, one experience, zero compromise. Get started now at cspire.com/one plan. C Spire, customer inspired. Mose on the C Spire text line. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Derek Simmons come out and say something negative about the committee and redistricting? I'd say he showed he already made his mind up how this was going to go. And I said to Mose, patience, young grasshopper. That is exactly where we are headed next. So Derek Simmons, Senate Democrat leader, has been removed from the Select Committee on Redistricting by the Lieutenant Governor and has been replaced with Senator Albert Butler, a Democrat from Port Gibson. It comes after a letter that was sent jointly to Delbert Hosemann and House Speaker Jason White from Simmons, Robert Johnson, House Minority Leader, and Legislative Black Caucus Chairman Kabir Kareem, in which they said they did not believe that lawmakers should redraw political districts. Quote, the legislature cannot and should not revert to lines or schemes that have already been determined to dilute black voting strength, which could constitute intentional discrimination. Indeed, it does not need to draw new lines at all. In a statement, Derek Simmons said that he respects the lieutenant governor's authority to appoint senators to committees, but he believes that the legislature should not redraw the lines. And he says, my position on mid-decade redistricting remains unchanged. I continue to believe that any consideration of redistricting should be legally justified, transparent, and accompanied by meaningful public input. All right, we got two statements, one from that letter from Simmons, Johnson, and Kareem, in which they say the legislature cannot and should not revert to lines or schemes that have already been determined to dilute black voting strength. Well, that is factually inaccurate. When you put the word the legislature cannot, yes, the legislature can redraw the lines, whether it is going back to previous district lines or starting from scratch and redrawing them. The legislature actually has the power and the authority to do just that. Now, should not is a matter of opinion. And then in Simmons' statement, he says, I continue to believe that any consideration of redistricting should be legally justified, transparent, and accompanied by meaningful public input. Well, Senator, check, check, and check. The legal justification is the ruling by the Supreme Court in Calais versus Louisiana, in which the Supreme Court of the United States of America said district lines cannot be drawn solely based on race. When you have had a previous judicial decision that says you must create majority-minority districts, you've already had district lines that have been drawn and legally justified based on race. Secondly, he says the process should be transparent. What has happened so far that gives the illusion that this is not a transparent process? Not saying we can't get there. Not saying that there aren't conversations that will happen, have happened, or going to happen behind closed doors. But so far, this has been a very transparent process. Committee meetings that are open to public. And then he says, accompanied by meaningful public impact. You have senators and representatives who are spending almost the entirety of the months of August and September traveling all over the state of Mississippi to host public forums in which members of the public are allowed to speak out on this matter and to ask questions about this matter. How else would you like to see public input? What better way is there to do that? Generally, the legislature in Mississippi redraws district lines once a decade after the census. This is a mid-sentence redistricting process. But it's not the same as what has happened in Texas and California and Florida. Those processes began before the Calais decision. Mississippi has taken a pretty careful approach in that they have awaited the Supreme Court to hand down that decision and, frankly, have been kind of slow in moving on this. Because of the timing of when Calais was handed down by the Supreme Court, Mississippi said, we've had primaries. We probably could ram this process through, but we're not going to do that right now. Leadership has also taken a very pragmatic approach to the way they are going about the redrawing of district lines. Legislative and judicial first before ultimately moving on to congressional. At least we think that's the way it's going to go. So I thought it was significant for us to go back and play the words of Delbert Hosemann on this program when he vehemently defended leaving Derek Simmons on this committee. And his rationale was, I want to win. And his explanation for that rationale was, Simmons was on the previous redistricting committee. Once we come up with these new district lines, inevitably we will be sued. We need to be able to point to all parties being involved in the process in our defense of the new district lines. But then, after adamantly defending Derek Simmons being on this committee, ultimately he has removed Derek Simmons from the committee. And I think it's because this is not the same as a jury. It's not the same thing. But if a juror speaks out about a case publicly prior to being selected, they won't be a juror. And if during the process of a trial, a jury speaks to a newspaper reporter or a radio host or anybody else, then you're going to end up with a mistrial because of a lack of impartiality among the juror. I'm assuming that the rationale for removing Senator Simmons here is that he very publicly has said this process shouldn't happen. I disagree with this process. We shouldn't be doing this. We cannot be doing this. Which, again, there's fallacy in because the legislature can do this. And so my assumption is that the lieutenant governor viewed that letter and the subsequent statement from Derek Simmons as disqualifying for his participation on the committee, in so much as he's not really going into it with an open mind. Simmons would probably argue that it's a predetermined outcome regardless, and so what difference does it make whether or not he has an open mind? But in fairness to the lieutenant governor, he did appoint another Democrat to the committee, presumptively for the same reason that Simmons was put on the committee in the first place, to show that there is some level of balance between Republicans and Democrats in the committee. So, we shall see where this goes moving forward. One of the things that, and this is something that we've talked about previously, that I'm really interested to see with all of this is, do we just revert to the 2022 lines, the 2022 districts? You remember both the House and the Senate lost Republican representation after those district lines were redrawn at the behest of a federal district court. But those lines, even though the legislature overwhelmingly approved them, were drawn pre-Calais, meaning that majority-minority played a role in the way the district lines were drawn. Is everybody okay with that for the redrawing of these district lines? Or is it a start-from-scratch conversation? Interesting to continue to watch this develop. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. Up next, first guest of the morning, the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tindell, will join me.
From the Seabrook Curve. For news, fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. We are joined now by the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety and now announced candidate for the office of Attorney General, Commissioner Sean Tindell. Sean, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Richard. Great to see you as well.
You made this announcement last week in your hometown of Gulfport, and then spent some time over the following days traveling across the state, visiting with a lot of people. Why did you decide that, one, this was the right time to make the announcement, but I suppose more importantly that you want to be the state's Attorney General?
Well, there's a couple of things there. One, obviously Lynn Fitch had announced a couple of weeks earlier that she would not be seeking re-election as Attorney General and that she would be, in fact, seeking election as Mississippi's next governor. So did not want to obviously get out in front of her until she made that decision public. And so we knew that once that was there that, we needed to let people know that that's the direction we were looking. And so we made the announcement last week, and of course started in Gulfport and came to Jackson, then Tupelo, and finished up in DeSoto County, and just got a great response. I mean, overwhelming response, being endorsed by most of the Republican DAs. A lot of sheriffs across the state have gotten on board, and the number just keeps growing. And I think it's indicative of the job that I've done in various roles, going all the way back from when I was a prosecutor to being a state senator, to being a judge, and now being the commissioner of public safety. So, and as far as why, I started my career as a prosecutor. I've had a passion for public safety from the beginning, and I think it's important that our next attorney general be somebody that's on the forefront of trying to make Mississippi safe, keep Mississippi safe, get these drug dealers and put them in jail, get these sexual predators and get them off our streets, and get any of these murderers and make sure that they're locked up for the rest of their lives. So public safety is going to be my number one priority there, and then moving into protecting the constitutional rights of our citizens, making sure that their freedoms are upheld, that their right to freedom of religion and First Amendment, freedom of speech, and Second Amendment, all those things are so important. And we've made so many great strides having a Republican Attorney General that we want to keep that momentum moving forward in the Attorney General's office. And I think I have a very unique set of qualifications that makes me the best candidate for that particular position.
Do we count the post on X from the governor, Tate Reeves, who appointed you to Commissioner of Public Safety, as an endorsement? He said, law and order conservative Sean Tindell says public safety will continue to be his number one priority as Attorney General. He has done a superb job as our Commissioner of Public Safety. Does that count as an endorsement?
Well, I think he's certainly supportive of somebody that's led the charge for him in public safety across the state over the last 6 years. And so I'll let him answer as to whether or not that's an endorsement, but I think it's clear he's supportive of the endeavors that we're undertaking here.
There is an interesting dynamic in Mississippi based on the Constitution that allows statewide elected offices a pretty significant amount of power. And I think the office holders, really through most of our history, have been respectful of that power and have not been abusive of it. The Attorney General's office carries a significant amount of weight and a significant amount of power for the person who is in that seat to use it. Can you kind of describe what you view as the role of the Attorney General in Mississippi with regard to the power that office potentially holds?
Sure, and I think statutorily it speaks to the Attorney General's office being the chief legal counsel for the state of Mississippi in both criminal and civil matters, and so you take a very large lead role when it comes to criminal matters, working with DAs across the state. Obviously, in officer-involved shootings, they have a role in that, and a number of criminal matters. But also, on the other end, when the state gets sued, they're the chief legal counsel. When agencies get sued, they provide counsel for those agencies. And when the laws of the state of Mississippi get challenged, the Attorney General's office is tasked with defending those laws. And we've seen time and time again where, not having an Attorney General that is willing to enforce and try to defend the laws as written results in, I think, outcomes that aren't what the citizens of Mississippi expect and want. And I will say, under General Fitch and under the leadership of Governor Reeves, what we have seen is the right for the sanctity of life to be upheld. And the Dobbs decision was a critical turning point, not just in our country, but in our state, when it comes to protecting the rights of the unborn. When we look at our Second Amendment rights and the directions that those have gone, making sure that when those laws are challenged, when those conservative principled laws are passed in our state and they get challenged, that they've got an Attorney General that's going to fight to uphold those. And you were talking about it earlier with the Cali decision, even though that wasn't a Mississippi case, that's a prime example of it's well past time that conservative states stand up and fight for the constitutional rights of their citizens and defend legislation that is passed that defends those principles and take it all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. For far too long we've seen certain liberal judges who try judicial activism from the bench, and those decisions are not challenged nearly enough and hard enough and fought for to overcome those types of decisions. And so you can be assured that as your next Attorney General, that's exactly what we'll do.
Sean Tindell, running for Attorney General in Mississippi. If you run for, let's just use governor, for example, then a gubernatorial candidate has got to lay out their platform. And different candidates have different ideas for what they think is most important for using Mississippi as an example, the state of Mississippi, and kind of what their priorities will be. I think if you look at the tenure of Attorney General Lynn Fitch, clearly one of her priorities has been on joint law enforcement efforts of which you've been a part, to slow down sex trafficking, to find child predators and put them in jail. Obviously, that is incredibly important. Is there a platform, and I don't know if I'm asking that the right way, or maybe are there priorities for you as you run for this office, if you are elected to this role, that will kind of be the order in which you pursue things?
And I've said it from the very beginning, as Attorney General, my number one priority is going to be maintaining public safety and continuing to fight to work together. And I think we've done that at the Department of Public Safety with our collaboration with state, federal, and local law enforcement agencies to make our streets safer. So we'll continue doing those things as Attorney General, and particularly in the avenues when it does come to drug trafficking, when it comes to human trafficking, and when it comes to anything that we can do, because the Attorney General's office is also responsible for handling the appeals in criminal cases from the district attorney's levels across the state. So making sure that when our local DAs get those convictions, that those convictions are upheld when they're appealed. And so from the front lines to the courthouse, we're going to be making sure that Mississippi is a safer place because we're locking up criminals. But then on the other side of that, and I think what's really important, that our Attorney General is also, even though it's not in the statute, is often referred to as the chief law enforcement officer for the state of Mississippi, and making sure that as the Attorney General, we are working with our sheriffs, that we're working with our police chiefs, and we're working with our district attorney's offices to do everything we can to make sure they have the tools they need to be successful in public safety officials on the local level as well.
Sean Tindell is my guest, currently the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. He is running for Attorney General. I try to be consistent in asking this question when we talk to a candidate for an office who has an existing job, and usually there's an existing job. You don't just have a job, you got a big job as Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. How do you balance being a candidate for a job that you are seeking while fulfilling your role as Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety in a way that is what people of the state of Mississippi expect you to do?
No, and I fully understand that and respect that, and we're coordinating with the governor on an exit strategy. I imagine by the end of the year, I will have be stepping down as commissioner, and we've made that known that we're giving him a little time to figure out who that next commissioner should be. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to balance both these things. And we're still a year out, so it's very early in this process. Last week took a week off and did things on the campaign trail. This week is going to be a little more of a normal week in the office, doing the things I typically do as commissioner. And so, trying to balance that in the meantime. But I imagine we'll have an announcement coming soon about my retirement from the Department of Public Safety and the role as commissioner.
Those PTO days get used a little bit differently now than maybe they would have previously. Sean Tindell is my guest. He is the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. He is a candidate for Attorney General in Mississippi. We'll continue the conversation on the other side of this break. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. More coming up with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Appreciate you being with us and appreciate some time from Sean Tindell this morning, the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety and also candidate for Attorney General. Announced that last week. I guess he lost the directions. I mean, this would have been a great place to tell the entire state that that's what you wanted. Just giving you a hard time. I do appreciate you coming in and visiting with us this morning. I would like, if we can, to shift from a potential future role to the job that you're serving in right now as commissioner. Obviously, the middle part of the summer, from the 4th of July really through the early part of August, the conversation across the state was dominated by the Nolan Wells case. As is normally the case, people move on with their lives, and there tends to be less that is said, whether it's online or publicly. I know that the coast hasn't moved on. There was some chatter last week online and from some people involved. Are there any updates that you can pass along from the department standpoint of where we are and what's going on in this case?
You know, I think the DA down there is, handling things at this point. I know her intent is to let the grand jury review the facts and circumstances. And I think with so much information floating around, that it really forced the sheriff's department that's leading that investigation to have to interview a lot of witnesses. Certainly there's been a lot of chatter on social media and online. And one of the things that I think is very tragic about obviously the death of Nolan Wells is very tragic. And anytime you see a young life taken like that, it's sad. But outside of that, through this process, the misinformation that has gone out about various individuals, friends of his, others, his mom, he himself, and the manipulation of documents that are put out online, and we addressed some of that because there was toxicology reports going around purported and made to look like it was his, and it was clearly a fake, one that had been taken in another case from years ago and manipulated to look like it was his. And so, I think we need to have a serious discussion going forward about, different crimes that can arise out of if you take official government documents and intentionally manipulate them and disseminate them online, what that looks like. And then obviously there's situations where I think there's going to be a lot of defamation lawsuits coming out of this, and there should be. You look at what's recently come down in Alabama with the Alabama basketball player and the New York Times and the way that he was portrayed. And so I think, it's not like it was 20 years ago when all you had was print media. Social media brings a totally different level of damages that can impact somebody, and the impact that it has on these young people and judges and others when they're being just totally lied about through social media.
Two things kind of as a follow-up to that. Will the public ever see a full version of the autopsy report and the toxicology report?
That, there was a case out of Meridian several years ago that resulted in some changes to our laws, particularly when it comes to disclosure of the full autopsy report and various aspects of that. And if you think about it, it is a medical document, and the family might have certain privacy rights and issues that they would like to be considered. So, a lot of times that'll come out during court proceedings, and if it does, that's a little bit different versus it just being made totally available to the public in every single case. So, I will hold off judgment on whether or not that's totally released to the public, but I think the results will be made known.
What happens next?
Hopefully there's a moment, and we'll see what comes out of the grand jury report.
Let me interrupt just for a second. people hear grand jury, and I'm not sure that everybody understands that those are dates that are already on the calendar. When is the next grand jury seating where they should hear this case?
Well, grand juries are different in every county across the state. Your larger counties, like Harrison County, might have a grand jury convene once a week while the grand jury's in session. Your smaller counties, and we'll use like Stone County, for example, might have their grand jury convene once every 2 or 3 months. So it's different across the state. And the other thing with grand jury proceedings is those are generally not public.
Right.
They're supposed to be in secret. The members of the grand jury are not known because it is one where you want a fair review of all the evidence and no public pressure be put on that particular grand jury because, again, it's just a probable cause as to whether or not an indictment should be issued out of that grand jury charging somebody with a crime.
Sean Tindell, Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, always good to catch up with you. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon.
Great. Look forward to it.
Wish you all the best.
Thank
Mornings with Richard Cross. Good conversation with the Commissioner this morning. We've got more coming up with you. 8 o'clock hour is on the way. Much to get to on this Monday morning, August 24th. Thanks for joining us. MRC presented by Community Bank.
Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. My thanks to Sean Tindell for joining us in studio this morning. Talking a little bit about whether or not there were any updates. Not really right now in the Nolan Wells case, but also about his candidacy for Attorney General. I will say, and candidly, I like Sean Tindell a lot. I have been fortunate to get to know him. And the transition from public safety commissioner to attorney general makes a lot of sense to me. That is not an endorsement. I don't think that's appropriate in the chair that I sit in. But I do think Sean Tindell's a good man. And I think he's done a good job as commissioner. And if Mississippians see to it to elect him to the Attorney General's post, I think he is someone that would make a lot of sense given his background as an attorney, as a prosecutor, serving in a judgeship, and as commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. So I appreciate him sharing some of that with us, and we'll continue to visit with the commissioner and any other Mississippian who puts their name into the consideration for Mississippians for Attorney General or for any other statewide elected office. I anticipate that pretty soon there's going to be at least one more announcement, perhaps more than one, for that seat. That it's such an important role in Mississippi, and you need competition. Now, if you're running for a particular office, the idea of running unopposed it's pretty awesome. It's also very, very unlikely. So we will continue these conversations as we move closer toward 2027 statewide elections. Going to be so much to talk about with that. One thing the commissioner asked me to share with you, we just ran out of time and didn't get to this. Mississippi Department of Public Safety Cadet Class number 71 is coming up. And the deadline for application to what we have traditionally called Trooper School is August 29th. If you want more information about that, you can go to the Mississippi Department of Public Safety website. That is dps.ms.gov. If you cannot remember that website, do exactly what I did. Open up a search bar and type in Mississippi Highway Patrol Class 71. And boom, you got links right there to the application. Certainly they are looking for good people to be part of the Mississippi Highway Patrol. And who knows what doors that might open into the future. I mean, there are so many people in law enforcement that start out in one area, and as their career advances, they go a lot of different directions. If it feels like that's something that is worth looking into, you can do that. Again, that website, dps.ms.gov. The requirements are 21 years old, high school diploma or GED, United States citizen and Mississippi resident. You need a driver's license, a social security card, high school or college transcripts, and if you have served in the military, you need a copy of your DD-214. That cover it all, Will?
That's it.
All right. Oh, and you need to be in shape when you go.
Dang.
Yeah. If you can't do 10 push-ups, it's probably going to be a tough road to hoe for you getting through the training process. I just picked that as an arbitrary number, but I'm assuming not being able to do 10 push-ups would make some of the other physical challenges difficult for you. A couple of you have sent messages about this morning. The President of the United States is perhaps getting himself into a bit of hot water with Republicans and with cattle producers, beef producers in particular. So on Friday, the Trump administration announced that it will allow more beef to be temporarily imported into the United States without triggering higher tariffs. This is a result of the pressure to cut costs and address affordability issues for Americans ahead of the November midterms. He said on social media, Truth Social, that he had committed to ensuring the imported beef would be sold at 25% below current market rates, making it cheaper for American consumers. A White House official said the deal is with foreign beef exporters who have agreed to the discount on beef, which theoretically would then be passed on to consumers. The backlash was swift and significant. Tim Sheehy, representative from Montana, I've advised President Trump against this course of action for a year because American ranchers have been struggling against the packer monopoly for decades, and this will further harm them, most of whom are MAGA Republicans. Sheehy has been a pretty staunch ally of the president, and he said that the president's heart is in the right place, but the plan would nonetheless make it more difficult for American ranchers to rebuild our herd and bring prices down for the American people. And most importantly, it will harm our ranching families who feed the nation. I'm curious who in the Trump administration thought this was a good idea. Like, how did they get to the, you know what, here's what we need to do. We need to allow foreign beef producers to ship their product to the United States with lower tariffs if they agree to cut the prices by 25% or more. When Tim Sheehy says that the president's heart is in the right place, what he means is the president realizes that affordability and expenses are a real issue for the American people. And they could very well cost Republicans midterms, and so they are grasping at straws to find something. But that something cannot be, we are going to take farmers in the United States and we are going to intentionally cut their legs out from under them in the name of winning the midterm elections. Was there anybody in the room when this decision that was made that goes, excuse me, are we sure this is the best plan? Because we've got American beef producers, and we want to tell the American people that we're going to allow imported beef at three-quarters of the price of what you pay at the store? I mean, I know people love that Australian Wagyu, but doesn't it just... I'm rewinding in my head to the time between the election and the inauguration, when we talked over and over and over about a mandate from the American people. House, Senate, White House. Now the hard part starts because you've got to go govern. And the people that hate Donald Trump created so many obstacles, and it was like they were fighting battles on so many fronts that they lost the plot on what they were elected to do. There certainly has been good border security at the top of the list. But man, there's been some questionable decisions from this administration.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
It's time to get real.
Keeping it real.
It's time for you to get real with it.
And keeping it Mississippi. Your voice for statewide and national politics.
Yes! Yeah.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Greg and Nettleton, C-Spire text line. Haven't heard anything from our representatives about this. They need to speak up. It's still relatively new news, Gary. It was Friday that the announcement came from the administration, and I don't think that any of the representatives outside of Benny Thompson are just lining up to immediately shout down something that the president puts in as a policy that's designed to create something within the economy that's a little bit more affordable. But yes, we should hear from the representatives in Mississippi that, hold on. We've got beef producers in Mississippi. There are beef producers all over the United States. We cannot put policies in place, Mr. President, that intentionally undercut, chop the legs out from under our people who are working hard just to keep their farms open and their herd intact? You can't do that, sir. Yes, we should hear from our senators and our representatives on that. And I know that Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith is a staunch ally of the president. And that relationship has been incredibly beneficial to the state of Mississippi. But I think we need to hear from Cindy Hyde-Smith on this and say, hey, look, I understand what the president is trying to do, and it is well-intentioned, but this is not good for the farm community in Mississippi. She needs to say that publicly.
Just a note, Mike McCormick, the Mississippi Farm Bureau president, will be on with Gerard Gibbert today at 10:20.
10:20 this morning. I suspect I know what Mike McCormick is going to say about this.
Well, he put out a statement. I don't know if you saw it.
I have not seen it yet, no.
Basically, coming out strongly against it.
He has repeatedly said to me, to us, in conversations, tariffs are bad for farmers. I am guessing that you will hear in his words, selectively enforced tariffs and artificially lowered prices for foreign companies in the United States, bad for farmers. I do not have his statement in front of me, but I'm guessing it's something to that effect. From the cattle people I know in Mississippi, I'm told the problem is not producing the product. The problem is getting it to an appropriate packaging facility and being able to make a decent profit from that point forward. Thomas in Greenwood says, make Argentina great again. Another message, C-Spire text line. Trump did not say from where it was being imported. Gary's the one that pointed out that we need to hear from our elected officials on this. I mean, catch-22, the message from a CO1 says, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, it's absolutely right. If you do nothing to address the affordability issue, you're not making it any better on yourself. But if your solution to address affordability issues is to undercut part of your domestic farm production operations, well, that's not the answer either. Here is the statement from Mike McCormick. Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation is highly disappointed in the president's announcement this morning lifting import restrictions on foreign beef currently flooding the U.S. market. Contrary to the administration's belief, this policy does not help the U.S. herd rebuilding efforts and could possibly do permanent harm. Instead, the administration should focus its time and energy on reducing fuel and input costs for American agriculture that could result in lowering prices for all American consumers. We are deeply concerned this policy will have long-lasting unintended consequences on American food security. C-Spire text line, I work in the farm industry every day. Talk to many producers, most right now. If I had to do it over again, I would think twice before voting for Trump. They are very, very disgusted. Walter in Tupelo says, pretty obvious this is an attempt to help midterms. Walter, yeah. And I think everything that happens between now and November is an attempt to help midterms, which is a problem. Because everything that happens should be an attempt to help the American people. I've never been adamantly for or against term limits. I think there are certainly drawbacks to term limits. I think there's a very real probability that term limits make the deep state more powerful in Washington. And what I mean by that is career bureaucrats who don't come and go know how the sausage is made and know how the sausage factory works. And perhaps more power ends up with those career unelected bureaucrats that exist today, and that's saying something. If you have kind of a turnstile of politicians in and out of D.C., however, the level of comfort that exists with elected officials is far too high. Far too high. But when half of every term for a U.S. representative is focused on getting reelected, when every 2 years we have midterms, you lose the ability to get, like, your timeline for governing is cut in half. And if anything is evident, this Congress does not need half as much time to govern. They need twice as much time to govern. But think about it. You have a third of the House of Representatives that is dealing with midterms every 2 years. And so it's like, all right, we got a year to get some stuff done, and then part of the next year to get some stuff done, but man, then all of our focus has to turn to midterms because we got to maintain a majority, or we've got to overtake the current majority so that we get rid of the minority so that we can do our thing next. We talking about who's running for president a year and a half, 2 years out, and the focus goes there. For months now, we've been talking, I mean, I'm guilty of this, have said for months now, price at the pump is going to determine the outcome of midterms. Current national average is over $4 for a gallon of gas. In Mississippi, it's $3.66 average. 1 gallon, 87 octane unleaded. $3.66 a gallon. The number I've used is, hey, if gas is at $3.50 a gallon, it's really tough on Republicans. If it's under $3, they got a puncher's chance. The only saving grace at this point for Republicans is the Democrats have gone so Looney Tunes far to the left that they may not be able to take advantage of it either. Democrats should boat race Republicans in this midterm cycle. They should. I think instead it's going to be really, really close because Democrats are about as organized as an upside-down tackle box right now. JT Mitchell, news director of the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. He's going to join us next. We'll grab a few more of your messages on the C Spire text line as well. 601-879-4395. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. We're back after this.
From breaking news to bold opinions, Richard dives into the stories shaping Mississippi and the nation. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. Appreciate you joining the conversation on the C Spire text line. The one plan from C Spire is here, fiber home internet and wireless. Only $99 a month for new and current C Spire customers. One plan, one price, one experience, zero compromise. Get started now at cspire.com/one plan. C Spire, customer inspired. This very loose thing, Will, that we are doing where we say text of the day. I think this is the one that I would go with today. As a third-generation farmer, I'm still glad to have Trump instead of Harris in the White House, but this has become personal with our cattle farmers. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that's well said. JT Mitchell joins us right now, the news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. JT, good morning to you.
Richard, what's up, man? How are you?
Everything's good. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. You did not meet Luke Bryan?
Not personally. No, he was part of our broadcast. We had a sideline reporter who interviewed him, and he was a happy dad on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, it was a beatdown.
Yeah.
I know there was an injury, right?
Yeah, if you have no idea what JT and I are talking about, I was on the broadcast for a high school football game on ESPN, part of the high school football kickoff showcase. Battleground Academy from Nashville at St. Michael Catholic in Fairhope. Gunnar Rivers was the quarterback for St. Michael. That is the son of Philip Rivers, who's the head coach there. And Luke Bryan's son, Bo Bryan, was the quarterback for BGA. Gunnar Rivers got hurt late first quarter, knee injury, did not come back in the ball game, and BGA kind of rolled from there. And Luke Bryan was on with us on the broadcast at the beginning. He was excited.
He was. BGA, historically a pretty good program. But, Richard, if you do want to meet Luke Bryan in person, American Idol auditions are coming up, and you can do it.
I'm good.
Anybody who lives in Mississippi, actually, Richard, I don't know if you can do it. You probably can't. Anybody in Mississippi between the ages of 15 and 28?
Yep, nope, can't do it. Absolutely not.
Can audition Wednesday, September 23rd. That's the date reserved for Mississippi. You can register now. It'll pretty much be a live video interview with one of those producers, and you can be like Richard's sideline reporter. If you sing well enough, you can meet Luke Bryan and try to be the next American Idol.
There you go. What's going on this morning?
A lot always. I mean, you guys have been talking about redistricting. Man, that's been we talk about these pockets of radio, right? How long have we been talking about redistricting now? I mean, take Calais out of it. We've been talking about redistricting.
I mean, you go back to 2022 when the court order came down that Mississippi had to redistrict, and then did so, and it cost seats in the House and the Senate at the legislature. It does seem like a regular conversation.
And, of course, it's picked up. I mean, 2022, I agree. That's kind of where I would circle it on the calendar. After you got that federal order that came down saying we had to redraw places in DeSoto, Chickasaw County, Hattiesburg area, over the dilution of black voting power. But then it really picked up with that Supreme Court decision back in April.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about how Senator Simmons got taken off the committee. A different Democrat was added on, and these public hearings that are taking place. And so I spoke with the Lieutenant Governor's office, I guess it was last week or tail end of 2 weeks ago, and they really want the public to come out to these public hearings on redistricting. Of course, it kicked off last Tuesday at Itawamba Community College. Now, if you want to go get in on the conversation, hear what they're thinking, talk to them about what you're thinking, because you can submit public comments. Thursday, August 27th at Northwest Mississippi Community College. So that's this Thursday. And then 8 days from now, Tuesday, September 1st is going to be at Delta State. And then Tuesday, September 8th at Alcorn State. You have some others throughout the month of September in Meridian, Hattiesburg, Biloxi, and Jackson. But the LG's office really wants the public to come out. because redistricting is going to happen.
JT, I'm going to be interested to see if any of these public forums actually turn into kind of a balanced conversation, or if all of them devolve into what the event at Itawamba Community College did, which is just a sounding board for Democrats to say how much they hate the idea.
Well, I think that is $1 million question number one. And then $1 million question number two is, how are these public comments used, if at all?
Is it possible that this is all just performative? That it's just window dressing? They're going to do what they're going to do, but hey, we give the perception of this being a public, we're listening to you by going and sitting and taking the tongue lashing from the audience, and then go back and do what we've got the power to do?
Well, I think that's contingent on who you ask. I won't sit up here and say yes, but perception, that was a word used earlier when you played back your June conversation with the lieutenant governor, correct?
He said as much. He said we've got to, and I'm paraphrasing here, this is not direct quote, but he said, look, we've got to have Democrats on this committee, so at the very least we have the perception that both sides are involved. And
lawsuits will happen.
Yes.
No doubt about it. I would be a very rich man if I could bet on lawsuits happening after redistricting takes place.
Yeah.
Because lawmakers, at least from what I'm hearing, after these public hearings are complete, they're going to tell the governor that they're ready. The governor is going to call a special session by the end of the calendar year, is what people up there at the Capitol are saying.
Sounds like in November, most likely.
And they're going to get up there, and they're going to redraw the state Supreme Court, the state legislative, and then, of course, the congressional maps. But you've got
I don't think the congressional maps are going to happen during this special session.
Have to happen right away. Thank you for the clarification. You have to do the legislative at least, though, because the qualifying period begins in January.
Yeah. And look, this is only a slightly informed opinion. It's more opinion than anything else. Almost even a guess. But my guess is that mid-November they will try to do a special session, put this to bed before Thanksgiving so that December can be December, and then they'll take up congressional redistricting during the 27 session.
I mean, there's not that would be a believable time, because there's not that much time. I mean, we're sitting here August 24th.
Yeah.
You sprinkle in
Qualifying
holidays.
starts, what, January 2nd and runs through the end of the month of January?
Yes.
So, clock's ticking on redistricting. Hey, NOAA has released some fall temperature expectations. Is that right?
Yeah, I wish I could say on a happier note, fall weather is coming.
Yeah.
But no, last week, NOAA...
We got a little cloud cover in North Mississippi this morning.
It actually feels good.
It feels less bad.
Less bad, thank you. I mean, when we did that football game at Hartfield on Friday night, it was 85 degrees. I thought it was November. And, we may get to November and it may be 85 degrees. NOAA released its fall weather prediction for all 50 states last week. It's just a prediction based on what they've seen this year, what they've seen in recent years. And yes, whether you look at the meteorological date or the astronomical date, fall begins September 1st or begins September 23rd. Fall weather will begin neither, at least from what NOAA is looking at. NOAA is predicting a hotter than usual September, some above average temperatures going into much of October potentially. And so I guess what I'll say is you plan to go to the pumpkin patch, you plan to go to your local high school or college football game, you might want to dress light.
You know what, JT?
What, Richard?
One of my favorite kind of nostalgic things is the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
But we've got a good one that's, I guess it's in Grenada County. Shameless plug here, I suppose, for Bull Bottom Farms. But they have, it's been really cool to watch that operation grow. And we've been to a bunch of school field trips there. My wife has taken some of the girls that work at one of her stores there as kind of like a field trip for them on a Sunday afternoon. And when you go to the pumpkin patch, you want to wear jeans and boots, and you want it to feel crisp in the air. When you go to the pumpkin patch and it's like a dust cloud and you're wearing shorts and flip-flops and you're like, oh, this is miserable. That is no fun.
It's not.
We need good fall weather for the pumpkin patch.
We do. So we got to talk to, what is it that a lot of people were saying last year, though, that the government is controlling the weather? Got to talk to the government or God, whichever one you believe, to get that changed. Because, Richard, my favorite holiday is Halloween, believe it or not. And I don't like a hot Halloween. Don't roll your eyes at me.
You should find a better holiday.
That's the first sign of divorce, when the other rolls their eyes at you.
Are you and I about to break up?
I don't know. I hope not. You rolled your eyes, though.
You keep trying to tell the great people of Mississippi that Halloween is the best holiday.
Get your candy. How can you not love a holiday?
Will's a Halloween guy, too.
That revolves around candy.
I prefer one that revolves around pie, like Thanksgiving or Christmas. Pie, far superior to candy. And you don't have to wear a stupid costume.
You get to wear a costume.
More with JT Mitchell right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
On with the show.
Is back. Holy smokes. On Super Talk Mississippi.
JT Mitchell in studio on this Monday morning, as he is every Monday morning on Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. Will East, fantastic work again this morning, as per usual, and appreciate you joining us on the C Spire text line. So we are nearing the end of the month of August, which means September is coming up next, and in north central Mississippi, particularly in Oxford, I cannot think of a date on the calendar that has been talked about as much as September 19th. That is the weekend that Ole Miss hosts LSU in a football game that has been pretty highly anticipated since the events of last fall. Along those lines, it's going to be expensive if you want to put your head on a pillow in Oxford that weekend. Tell me more.
Yeah, unless you're rich or have a press pass, I'll see you at home. It's going to be expensive. You know, September 19th is a date that maybe more Ole Miss fans have scheduled or have circled on their calendars before the start of the football season than ever. Kenny Ferris, who works for Visit Oxford, which is the tourism wing, she told us she's never known a date like this. She's before the season. There's never been a date where she knows exactly when that game is outside of the first one, and that's September 19th when Lane Kiffin comes back to town. Now, if you want a ticket, good luck. I mean, you can go on a secondary market. It's going to cost you more than $600 to sit in the nosebleeds. And
not really any nosebleeds involved. Not a bad seat. So you're going to get a decent seat, but it's going to be expensive.
This segment is brought to you by the University of Mississippi. No, you're right. Not a bad seat in Vaught Hemingway Stadium, but and if you need a place to sleep that night, good luck even more. We were and this article is at supertalk.fm. We were sifting through Airbnb to see just how much it would be for me and some family to go up to Oxford on the weekend of September 19th. I need a place to stay the 18th through the 20th. If you can get something for $1,500 outside of Oxford, you're looking good.
Per night.
Correct. But then it's more so in the $4,000 per unit range. That's crazy to me. I mean, that's absolutely insane. Even if you want to stay outside in Grenada or Batesville or even up to Memphis, you're going to be seeing some high prices. And so we asked Kenny, we said, hey, what do you need to do if you don't want to do those wild Airbnb prices? She said, call the hotels first, because even if you use a site, you Google the hotels, they may tell you they're sold out. But if you call them, there could have been a cancellation and you can squeeze right in. Just make sure to call the hotels first. And if you own a place in or around Oxford, I recommend you go ahead and rent it out. You will be making a pretty penny on the weekend of September 19th. And that's just one of the 7,000 sub-storylines of this weekend, right? I mean, it's expensive. Lane Kiffin's coming back to town. How will fans react? With Lane Kiffin coming back to town. The last time he went to a place he was hated at, he had mustard bottles, beer cans, and golf balls thrown at him. So it's going to be a fun weekend, I guess.
Yeah. There certainly is a lot of buildup and a lot going on that weekend.
And then
it
this
seems
weekend,
like
he may get an NFL player, right?
Yeah, that appears to at least be a possibility. We will see where that story goes. Anything you're watching for this week?
No, we're just taking it as it comes in. And if you want to take it as it comes in with us, I really recommend going to supertalk.fm. Our news team is doing an incredible job of putting out digital content every single day. Of course, you can listen to our newscast on 50-plus talk music and affiliate stations every single hour. We appreciate you for doing that. And if you can't catch us there, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you listen. But we'll just be taking the news as it comes in, Richard.
During the news headlines this morning, we talked about briefly the Humphreys County High School football student that was killed on Friday, just hours after playing in his school's jamboree. Any updates on that story?
Just tragic. No updates yet. The investigation is continuing into the death of Cameron Price. That's being led by the Belzona Police Department. MBI is assisting.
Okay.
No arrests have been announced. No additional information has been announced. We just know that he had just played in a jamboree, junior, defensive end, tight end, and then he was shot and killed on 3rd Street. Humphreys County School District did say that, we're praying for the family. We are offering counseling for our students. And I guess an update for you is that there will be a joint town hall tomorrow at O.M. McNair Middle School to address gun violence in the community.
JT, always appreciate your time.
Richard, you as well. Thanks, Will.
Thank you, Will East. Outstanding work as always. We will re-rack it and be back with you at about 21 hours. Talk to you tomorrow morning just after 6 o'clock. For Will East, JT Mitchell, Sean Tindell, I'm Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.